Good morning. It's nice to see you all and that there is at least mild interest in the topic this morning. We really appreciate that. I want to thank all of you for coming this morning and thank you even more for the work that you do every day. I see so many people here today that the Foundation has worked with over many years on many topics and issues, and you know, we're fortunate with all of our problems and issues to be in one of the most vital and dynamic cities in the nation, if not the world. But it wasn't always that way. As we know, Boston went through some very, very tough times in the mid to late 20th century, and the philanthropic support and the nonprofit effort has had as much to do as anything with the renaissance of the city. So we have the opportunity now to work on some problems associated with that renaissance, but believe me, as someone who started in Boston with Kevin White in 1975, we're in a lot better shape right now. No one is questioning that cities are going to be here. They become a much more important part of the economy. Very significant parts of the population are displaying a pronounced favorability for urban living. It's just really amazing if you have that view what's here. But under any scenario, the nonprofit community is going to be absolutely critical. And this is the first of a number of forums that we are hosting, some here and some in the neighborhoods, to try to do our job in communicating as clearly as we can what the Foundation is up to and how to successfully apply for funding from the Foundation. Frankly, I don't think we've done as good a job as we should have in previous years, and under Jennifer Aronson's leadership, we're really making a maximum effort. Part of that was being candid about what we think the Foundation has achieved or helped achieve in the last 5 years or so. And we have released a document that's not excessively long, that's quite accessible, that talks about that achievement. And you can get that document. It's called A 5-Year Look Back. What's the actual title of it? Thriving People. 2020, okay. So we're trying to be as candid as we can about what we've achieved and what we haven't and what our priorities are going forward. And like a lot of foundations around the country, in recent years, we've been pressed by our board and by others to take a stand on what we're really trying to achieve and how we will know when we get there. And that resulted in a very sharp focus on 5 issue areas that I'm sure you'll be talking about, and the lion's share of the funding going to those expressed priorities. And in some cases, that had a terrific result that we're very proud of. But one of the things that struck us in the context of celebrating the centennial of the Foundation, which was last year, as you know, we really scoured and excavated the history of the place much more than I think had ever been done. And it's really extraordinary. The Boston Foundation goes back literally to the dawn of organized philanthropy in this nation. And so its history is very interesting. But one of the things that jumped out at us as we surveyed the record and the experience was the astonishing number of times the Foundation had provided initial support or startup support for a new idea or for a nascent organization that really grew up to be somebody. And we call that, there at the beginning, the receptivity of the Foundation to new ideas. And that's not a universal attribute of foundations. There are few open windows. Many funders only fund invited proposals. So it turns out that this open window that the Foundation had been for so many years has really had a remarkable effect on the build-out of this unmatched private sector, I believe, in this nation. And it led us to worry a bit that we were so focused on what we'd said we were going to accomplish that we'd made it much more difficult for people with ideas that don't happen to align with our current priorities to come to the Foundation and get a hearing and perhaps get some funding. And so one feature of this that I just want to underscore is a new funding source called the Open Door Fund that is very, very explicitly for programs, initiatives, and ideas that don't happen to match up with our expressed priorities. And that's just a recognition that one of the most valuable roles this foundation has played is not thinking of all the ideas ourselves, but being an open window for others to come in. I'm saying open window, and it's the Open Door Fund, but it's open. It's open. And, you know, I don't want to kid anyone. I'm sure when this gets launched shortly, and I know Jennifer will talk about this, the competition for these grants will be fierce. Keep in mind that our whole discretionary grants budget at the Boston Foundation is $16 million a year. We have about a $300 million unrestricted endowment, and that's what generates the funds for the unrestricted grants. The overwhelming majority of grants that the foundation is making are really executing our donors' wishes, and the growth of donor-advised funds is one of the big stories in philanthropy. I'm happy to report that many of those donors are expressing a new interest in working with the foundation on our ideas and initiatives, so I think our donors are going to be a larger and larger factor going forward, and we're certainly going to press for that. And we do try to amplify that $16 million with a lot of fundraising. We're having some success securing funds from national foundations and from other local funders, but there's incredible pressure on that $16 million when you think about the range of things the foundation funds and is interested in. But we think having sessions like this is a very important way not to just communicate, but get the best ideas about this going forward. So again, I don't want to go on. It's a working session, but again, thank you for being here. Thanks for what you do every day, and we look forward to working with you. Now I want to introduce Jennifer Aronson, who'll run the meeting from here, our interim Vice President for Programs. Jennifer stepped in when we had a key departure and Travis McCready going to the Life Sciences Collaborative. She's done a spectacular job, but I'm sure she's relieved, as maybe many of are, that we think within days we'll be announcing a permanent appointment to Vice President for Programs. But please give her a big hand.
That's great news. Thanks, Paul. And good morning, everyone. So I thought that I would start, is this working? Perfect, great start, by reviewing our agenda for the morning before we dive in. So first I'll talk a bit about the Boston Foundation's role in Greater Boston, and Paul touched upon some of that, and I'll go into a bit more detail. Then I'll provide a quick overview of our next chapter. After that, we'll dive into our discretionary grant making. And during that time, I'll describe more about our core impact area grant making and other support, which Paul also touched upon. Followed by our grants director, Corey Davis, who will walk us through the new Open Door Grants program. And then after that, we'll have some time for Q&A. He, Hershey Busuego, who many of you may know from our vulnerable populations grant making work, will be facilitating that. And then Stephanie Guidry, our program officer for nonprofit effectiveness, will lead us through a discussion of the opportunities beyond grant making to connect with, support, and learn from one another. Also, I'd like to invite those of you with us in person today, as well as those watching via live stream, hello, to ask questions and engage with us during the session on Twitter and on Facebook. We have a few hashtags listed here at the bottom of the screen that you can use, including hashtag TBF grants for questions about our grant-making goals, guidelines, and processes. So as Paul mentioned, I too see many familiar faces in the room of friends and partners, and without which none of our work would be possible. So welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for everything that you do every day. I'm also pleased to welcome our future partners, those of you who are not as familiar with our work and whose work we are not as familiar with. We look forward to getting to know you, and as a start, I will share what we refer to as the 3 legs of the Boston Foundation stool. So the role most of you likely have the most familiarity with is that of a major grant maker in Greater Boston. We make approximately, as Paul mentioned, $16 million in discretionary grants annually to organizations located in and serving Greater Boston. The majority of these resources go to support our work in these 5 impact areas and 2 cross-cutting strategies that I'll get into in a moment, but we also do substantial grant making outside of these areas. Our second role is promoting systemic change through civic leadership. We publish cutting-edge research, we share it widely through public forums, and work in partnership with state and local government to advance solutions to some of our toughest challenges. Recent policy efforts include success with K-12 education, saving cities and towns millions through healthcare legislation, advancing criminal justice and Corey reforms, leveraging state resources for cultural facilities and the arts, and community college reform. And third, we help donors achieve high-impact philanthropy. That's the rest of the dollars that Paul mentioned. In FY15, we distributed over $110 million for more than 6,500 grants from over 600 donor-advised funds. In terms of geographic distribution for those grants, approximately 70% were made to organizations in Massachusetts, and of those, approximately 90% within Greater Boston. So, a quick word on where we're headed. For our next chapter, board and staff identified 3 central themes to guide our work over the next 5 years. We are reaffirming the commitment we made in 2009 to refocus our work in 5 impact areas and 2 cross-cutting strategies, through which we believe there is an opportunity for transformational systems-level change. We're maintaining open, flexible support through this new opportunity, Open Door Grants, and we'll continue to seek additional opportunities for impact. Our community faces continuing disparities and challenges, so we want to stay open to new partnerships and new opportunities for impact as well, especially where they have the potential to transform upward mobility and intersect with donor interest. So let's dig into the 5 impact areas and 2 cross-cutting strategies. I'll briefly touch upon each of them today, but there'll also be plenty of time during the Q&A to get into more detail. So, as I mentioned, we feel that the Boston Foundation, along with all of you, with our partners, is uniquely positioned to drive transformational system-level change in these 5 areas. In the education impact area, we work to ensure that all residents have access to opportunity and that their education prepares them to flourish in our community and succeed in their careers. And we do this in 2 primary ways. Via our K-12 structural reform work, we aim to increase the number of high-quality schools with site-based decision-making. And in our college completion work, we're scaling our Success Boston College Completion Initiative to increase the college completion rate for graduates of the Boston Public Schools who are enrolled in college. In the health and wellness impact area, we strive to both lower rates of overweight and obesity in Boston and throughout the state, and to reduce healthcare costs by encouraging a greater focus on prevention. We advance this work by investing in increased access to school-based youth physical activity, by addressing obesity in early childhood, and we contribute to the creation of healthy communities by investing in efforts to reduce health disparities and healthcare costs. In the jobs and economic development impact area, we work to provide equitable access to economic opportunities with a specific focus on those who have traditionally been overlooked. Our strategy in this impact area supports and grows effective workforce development initiatives such as SkillWorks, which helps low-skill, low and moderate-income residents move to family-sustaining jobs and helps employers find and retain skilled employees. We're also investing in the creation and growth of an inner-city entrepreneurship ecosystem and working to increase the participation rate of women and underrepresented minorities in Boston's growing innovation economy. Through our neighborhoods and housing impact area, we seek to make Boston and its surrounding communities affordable and accessible by pursuing 2 distinct but complementary strategies. Our housing strategy works to fundamentally reform the systems that impede housing production and destabilize low-income families. We do this by investing in advocacy around land use reform and pilot initiatives that stabilize families and housing. Our neighborhood strategy supports communities adjacent to the Boston's Fairmont Indigo commuter rail line and invests in their collective capacity to advocate for equitable development policies and to become a political force recognized by state and local policymakers. In the arts and culture impact area, we are nearing the end of a period of reflection. This effort has been informed by local and national research, more than 250 conversations with local leaders, stakeholders, and practitioners in the arts and culture sector, as well as information gathered through the city's Boston Creates cultural planning process. Our new strategy will include advocacy, policy, research, convening, and grant-making components that will aim to reach artists and arts and culture programs and organizations across Greater Boston. Okay, you guys still with me? All right, we're almost through the slide. Last but not least, the two cross-cutting strategies. The nonprofit effectiveness strategy aims to both strengthen the Massachusetts nonprofit sector and enhance the impact of the foundation's grantees. Our work in this strategy supports and promotes effective and sustainable nonprofits by focusing on three core elements necessary for impact: human capital, organizational capacity, and financial resources. The grassroots strategy is designed to respond quickly and nimbly to community needs and to help people come together, establish relationships, strengthen political will, form caring connections, heal divides, and build efficacy, clout, and resilience. The grassroots strategy seeks to activate grassroots leaders, seed grassroots ideas, and deepen grassroots connections. So, you may be saying to yourself or to your neighbor, this is all very interesting, but what does it mean to me? Has the Boston Foundation really changed its grant making in these areas? And the answer is mostly no. We do not anticipate real changes for those grantees that are aligned with our impact areas, and we do plan to continue to advance our work in these areas via large, multi-year general operating support grants. That said, we have made adjustments to this work over the past 5 years, and will continue to remain open to opportunities to adjust and to strengthen our progress in these areas going forward. In addition, I do want to mention that as part of syncing this grant making with our new Open Door Grants program, there is one new process requirement, and that is that a pre-conversation with a program officer is now required for all impact area applications. So to learn more, visit tbf.org. What? Oh, thank you. To learn more, visit tbf.org/grants, where you will find in-depth information about our approach, some of our partners, and how to apply. So before I turn things over to Corey to discuss our Open Door Grants program, I'll just take one more moment to review a few additional types of support that are now available through programs and initiatives. So these programs and initiatives listed on the slide are created when the foundation, often in partnership with other funders, sets aside resources to address specific pressing issues. The slide lists these current opportunities, and some of them, but not all of them, are open to application. Definitely check the website for more information because the criteria and the processes for each of these vary. So now I would like to introduce my colleague, Corey Davis, Director of Grants Administration here at the Boston Foundation. And Corey may be a familiar person to many of you. He's often the friendly voice on the other end of the line or the one sending the helpful email when you're applying to a grant. And Corey will now introduce our Open Door Grants program. Thanks.
Good morning. Public speaking is not my thing, and I already feel like I've let you down because Jennifer's slides had that awesome progression animation thing, and mine are all static. So I apologize in advance. But good morning, and thank you for coming out to learn a little bit more about the Foundation's Vision 2020 and what it means for our grant-making program. As Jennifer mentioned, I'm Corey Davis. I work in grants management here at the Foundation, and I'm going to be talking about an exciting new opportunity, which is our Open Door Grants program. So what exactly are Open Door Grants? Well, as the name is intended to convey, this is a wide open door for access to the Foundation. You don't need a key, and you don't need to know a special knock. Whether you have a new idea or an existing program, we want to hear about it, and it will be considered in the context of all of the applications that we receive. And unlike our more proactive grant making in our 5 impact areas, Open Door Grants are intended to be responsive to the expressed needs of the community. So with that in mind, it's not necessary for Open Door Grants to have a pre-conversation with a program officer or to get their invitation in order to submit. We're here and we're happy to help if you have questions or need assistance, but pre-conversation or an invitation is not necessary. You're welcome to submit your own idea in your own time. We're committing about $2 million to the first year of the Open Door Grants program, which works out to about $500,000 each quarter. So this is the tough slide. What we're trying to provide here is to give you some sense of who is eligible for Open Door Grants and who isn't. Bullet 1 has 2 components, and the broadest eligibility criteria is whether or not you serve the Foundation's geographic focus. It can roughly be defined as the ARC, communities within the ARC formed by Route 128, but I'd strongly encourage you to go to our website. On the How to Apply page, there's actually a list of every community that falls within the Foundation's geographic focus. Also in Bullet 1 is impact area. Does your organization fall within or outside our 5 impact areas? As a reminder, those are arts and culture, education, health and wellness, jobs and economic development, and neighborhoods and housing. If your organization or its work fall outside our 5 impact areas, say you're an environmental organization, a human service organization, or a grassroots organization, then you're eligible. But something that's not entirely obvious at first glance is that organizations and programs that do serve our 5 impact areas can still be eligible for Open Door Grants. I'll explain that beginning with Bullet 2 on this slide. So in Bullet 2, if your organization works in one of our 5 impact areas, but it achieves its ends using different strategies, goals, or approaches, then you're eligible to apply for an Open Door Grant. An example of that would be our education impact area, which focuses on college completion and uses student coaching to achieve that goal. An after-school student literacy program falls within education, but it's not aligned with our student coaching model and would therefore be eligible to apply for an Open Door Grant. What Bullet 3 is intended to convey is that even organizations or programs that make use of the same strategy and approach are eligible if they have different goals or focus on different populations. An example of an eligible program would be a physical activity program for seniors. This focuses on a different population than our health and wellness strategy, which focuses on physical activity for youth. In Bullet 4, what we're trying to convey is that organizations that have the same strategy and goal as one of our impact areas will be eligible if they use a different approach. An example of this would be an education-focused organization whose goal is to get students successfully through college. That's the goal of our college completion work, but our approach is student coaching. So if your organization uses a different approach to supporting college completion, then you'd be eligible to apply for an Open Door Grant. The right side of this slide shows who is not eligible to apply for an Open Door Grant. And that's pretty simple. It's only organizations or programs, regardless of their size or scale, that are perfectly aligned with our 5 impact areas, strategies, goals, and approaches. So, as Jennifer mentioned, we're going to continue working in our 5 impact areas. So what exactly has changed that makes Open Door Grants possible? Well, a number of formally separate grant-making programs have been consolidated under Open Door Grants, and those include the Vision Fund, the Food and Fuel Fund, the Vulnerable Populations Elder Fund, and Special Opportunity Grants. Under Open Door Grants, we'll consider capacity building requests that might in the past have been supported through our Vision Fund, and we'll consider requests from human services organizations that might in the past have been considered under the Vulnerable Populations Fund. So the point is we're not eliminating the opportunity to provide organizations with support that they would have received through these independent grant programs, but we're simplifying and streamlining the application process to make it easier and more clear, and to broaden the availability of these funds to more organizations. So we have 3 types of open door grants. Each one uses a unique application form. They're not a whole lot different, but they do ask specific questions to the type. The first type is innovation and new ideas, and these could be completely new startup nonprofits, but they could also be new or innovative ideas being put forth by an existing nonprofit organization. The second type is established organizations and programs, and this is for the ongoing work of existing organizations and programs. And the third type is capacity building, and this is for technical assistance, organizational planning, and staff, board, or organizational development work. In terms of structure, open door grants will fund both general operating support and project support. Grants will be for 1 year at a time, and they'll be renewable once. That means that there's essentially a 2-year maximum of funding through the Open Door Grants program before an organization would have to take 1 year off. That was an intentional decision. We opted to take this approach because one of the goals of the Open Door Grants program is to serve the broadest possible range of nonprofit organizations and issue areas. And some portfolio turnover would be necessary in order for that to occur. Grants will range from $10,000 to $50,000. And unlike our current impact area grants that accept applications on a rolling basis, open door grants will make use of a quarterly deadline. And the first deadline will be May 27th of this year. Thereafter, deadlines will fall on September 1st for consideration in December, December 1st for consideration in March, March 1st for consideration in June, and June 1st for consideration in September. And anticipation of a likely question in the Q&A, if the first falls on a weekend or a holiday, the proposal will be due on the next business day. And I don't really have a place for it here, but I also should mention, and this seems like the best place for it, that open door grants actually use a single stage process. So you don't have to submit a pre-application or an LOI or anything like that. What you submit will be the full application, and unless somebody contacts you with follow-up for more information, you should be all set for the whole process with that one application. So what is the timeline for open door grants? Well, amazingly enough, at least for those of us who have been immersed in planning for this for the last several months, we're already a week into open door grants. Last Tuesday, the announcement email went out, and our website went live with the new information. We have several community info sessions scheduled, and I should mention that we're taking the show on the road, so if you know anyone who would benefit from attendance in an information session like this one, please refer them to our website. We have upcoming community information sessions in April and May, and we have them in Roxbury, East Boston, Lynn, and another one here at the Foundation's offices. As I mentioned, applications will be due May 27th, and the first round of grantees will be announced in late September or early October. So this slide actually shows the homepage of the Foundation's website. And if you click on Learn How the Boston Foundation Invests in Nonprofit button, which is not obvious from where you are sitting, but if you were actually looking at this on a computer, it will be obvious. It's in the blue bar. If you select that, it will take you to the Investing in Nonprofits page, and that is the gateway to everything you need to apply to the Foundation, our guidelines, all of our application forms, our geographic focus, all of that. And with that, I know we've provided you with a ton of information. You probably have questions for us, so I would like to introduce my colleague, Hiroshi Busuego, who's a program associate here at the Foundation, and she will lead a question and answer session.
Thanks, Corey. Again, as Corey mentioned, my name is Hiroshi Busuego, and I'll be facilitating the question and answer portion of this info session. Okay. We have with us, both in the front row as well as scattered throughout the room, a number of members of the program department. So if you do have a question that we're ultimately unable to get to during the course of this formal session, please know that you'll be able to reach out to us both immediately after as well as via phone, email, social media. We want to be very accessible. During the session today, you'll find us by looking at our name tags. We have a little red dot in the bottom right corner. So again, feel free to reach out to us immediately afterwards if we don't get to your question during this part of the session. To start, I'd like to introduce my colleagues in the front row. At the very left of the room, we have Michelle Hinkle, who's our Special Assistant for Program. Next to her, we have Antonia Owens, our Program Officer for Education. Then we have Lynette Best, who's a Program Assistant for Education. Then Natanya Craig, Director of Grassroots. Eric Esteves, Director of our Social Innovation Fund, Success Boston. Then we have Amanda Holm, Manager for the Giving Common. Allison Esposito, Director for Arts and Culture. Damon Cox, Director of Jobs and Economic Development. Allison Bauer, who's Director of Health and Wellness. Becky Kepnick, Director of Neighborhoods and Housing. Stephanie Guidry, Program Officer for Nonprofit Effectiveness. And again, my colleagues Jennifer Aronson and Corey Davis. So a few ground rules. Again, because we are live streaming as well as recording this event, please wait for a microphone to get to you before you answer your questions so that you'll be heard by folks who aren't physically in this room. Once you have a mic, we have two, one in the front manned by Pamela, one in the back manned by Danielle. Please stand and introduce yourself by name and organization. Also, please try to be brief and refrain from making lengthy statements and focus instead on asking an actual question. Our hope is to be able to get to as many questions as possible in our time together. Finally, as we've said a couple of times already, we encourage you to engage with us on Facebook or Twitter using our hashtag TBFGrants and some of the other ones we have at the bottom of the screen, as well as your feedback cards on your chairs. Let's see. Okay. So with that, I guess we'll get started. Right there.
Linda Driscoll from Dream Big. What if you fall between the two in regards to open door versus the regular grants? So we provide both school-based PE and sports programs as well as out of school.
Sure. Well, my gut would be, and Allison can speak to this as well, my gut would be it would depend on what you want to put your application in for. You can obviously speak to the specific program related to Allison's strategy, or you can put in a proposal for another area of work that may not fall into the strategy goals or approaches of the health impact area. Allison, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, it's like Solomon, we're gonna just cut the baby in half, and then, yeah, I think he or she is definitely, articulated it well. I think that part of the reason why we want you reaching out to a program officer before, I'm not actually concerned this is not on.
I got one.
This one's on, whoa, okay. This one's really, really on, and now I'm even louder than I was before, so I'm very sorry about that. I think that's why we want you reaching out to a program officer in advance of applying for anything that's in the strategy to have a conversation, because I think often you think you're in the strategy, but having the conversation with the program officer will help be very clear depending upon how the strategy is looking to expand in any of our areas. So I think having that conversation and then getting the clarity will allow you to apply in one or the other. That makes clear. What is definitely true is, much like Solomon, we didn't actually split the baby. You can't be in both. So.
Okay, in the back, on the left.
Hi, I'm Sarah Stackhouse. This is a question for Allison. Hi, Allison. It's an arts and culture question, which is, it's my understanding that the arts and culture portfolio, the money's been fairly locked up for a number of years because there were so many multi-year grants that it was hard for new people to get in. And so my question is, are you going to continue working with your existing portfolio, and does that limit the opportunity for new organizations? Or are you going to open up to new organizations, and does that cause concern for existing organizations? Or is there more money?
Hi, Sarah. This is a complicated answer. So we are, in fact, in a couple of weeks going to announce the new priorities for the arts and culture strategy for the Boston Foundation, which is exciting. And it will be a pretty significant turn from the work that's happened in the past. We have been working with existing grantees to go through bridge or exit grants for the current year. But yes, there will be new money available from those buckets. In terms of applying for open grant making through the Open Door program, reaching out to have a conversation to figure out where you're aligned within the strategy or where you're not will be critical, because we'll sort of be rolling these things out at the same time.
Oh, I think there's a question over here.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Paula Paris. I'm with JFY Networks. Could you clarify the relationship between the Open Door grant application process and Giving Common, and what the difference in that application process is between organizations who have a Giving Common profile and those who do not?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We have an expert right here on the Giving Common.
So I'm just going to restate the question. The question was about the Giving Common requirement for those with a profile, those without a profile for an Open Door grant applicant. So just as for our 5 impact areas, Giving Common full profile is a requirement as part of that application. For the Open Door grant program, having an abbreviated profile with some highlighted areas is a requirement, so that we can do our due diligence as we do our grant reviews. So for that, there are 2 ways. So if you do have a Giving Common profile, you don't need to start a new one, you don't need an abbreviated one, you'll just email myself and Lee at givingcommon@tbf.org, and we'll just do a double check to make sure those areas are up to date. So your finances, your board members, et cetera. It's a few fields, just so that we can make sure that what we're reviewing with the grant team is current. If you do not have a Giving Common profile, same thing, email us, let us know you're applying through Open Door grants. We will set you up with one and make sure that you know that it's just these select fields. If you do want to go on and complete a full profile, you're welcome to, but you're not required to. If you have any questions along the way, you can email us, call us, and we'll make sure that you have exactly what is needed. And then you're done with our portion, and we'll submit that into the full grant team.
Hi, I'm Kit Manning with Tufts University. I have a question about public health research, if you support that. If the topic is in line with, let's say, one of your strategic areas, or for an open grant, if the research is what we might call applied or translational.
I'd hand that off to Allison.
Hi, so I'm not sure where you are. There you go. Okay, great. One, you'll be happy to know we have a very extensive relationships with Tufts University already, funding research. And we do fund research, whether it is research that's applied or not applied, is really just a question of whether it's something we're trying to advance from a research perspective. So I think the answer to your question is not a straight up, at least within the public health space, will we fund research or not? Does it have to be applied or not? But more, does it fit with something that we are trying to lift up from an issue perspective and how we're trying to advance that?
Good afternoon, or morning. I guess we're still in morning. I'm Michael Kane. I'm from the Mass Alliance of HUD Tenants. It's a question about the housing and neighborhood impact area. For decades, the foundation had prioritized community organization empowerment, civic engagement of disenfranchised communities, not just advocacy, but actually empowerment to change the power dynamic. Given the fact that Boston's now the most unequal city in terms of population, the most rapidly gentrifying city, is a real crisis that many of us are experiencing. Is that still a thematic priority for the foundation to prioritize resources, not not just for advocacy or service delivery, but actual organizing of disenfranchised communities?
Sure. I'll let Becky start off, and I'll finish from the open door
Hi,
grants
Michael.
perspective.
How are you? So I'll do the strategic stuff. So as we have discussed, for the foundation, community organizing around work along the Fairmount Indigo line is obviously something that we're very interested in through the impact area, and there is a very significant focus on gentrification and anti-displacement work, so that's a big area of focus there. And then on the pure housing work, to the extent there's community organizing around increasing housing production for, any income level of person, that is also something we're very interested in. So I would say there are themes to the community organizing and resident empowerment work in both those spaces. And then for Open Door, do you want me to talk about that, or do you want to?
Your call.
Well, okay.
Okay, sure. And I guess to expand on that, right, if it does go beyond the themes of any particular impact area, then you would be eligible to apply under open door grants. Okay, next question, right here.
Amelia Diamond, Jeremiah Endicott Program. Pretty brief. Can you give me a working definition for the Boston Foundation for nonprofit startup and how you would define that?
Sure. The working definition essentially is likely established within the last 3 years, may not have a 501c3 itself, but may be have a fiscal sponsor. I think that's our working definition. Obviously, as things evolve, we might add more granularity to that. Open Door Grants, as you can imagine, is a new program. So as we learn, the quarters progress, we'll probably add more granularity. Thank you.
Hi. For grassroots, at least, it's organizations that have $250,000 or less operating budget.
Thanks. Okay. Do we have another question in the audience? Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Lisa McFadden from Salem State University, and I'm wondering if you all might speak to some of the communities that are on the outer reaches of your catchment area, such as Salem, the North Shore, South Shore, and western suburbs. Is there a change in giving strategy, both in terms of impact area and open door grants?
So I would say, from the open door grants perspective, and I'll let Jen Aronson speak to our broader impact area grant making. That is one of our goals. One of our goals within open door grants is to maintain a diverse portfolio, and that one of the dimensions that we'll be looking at is geography served. And so absolutely, organizations that aren't serving people in Boston proper will definitely be looked at. From the impact area perspective, obviously I think depending on your issue area, you may want to reach out to the relevant program staffs. Yeah, great. And we'll take a few questions from social media.
Actually, that was the one that I had.
Oh, okay. Or I know we have one other person in the back, Lee, if there are any other questions coming in through social media.
Sure.
I'm coming.
Thanks. We have a question from a Twitter user. How do organizations that fall within more than one impact area go about connecting with a program officer to determine which area to apply for?
Yeah, I don't think there's an exact process for that. I would suggest you reaching out to the one you think you are most aligned with, and then after consultation with that program officer, you may decide to follow up with the other person that you had in mind. Okay, please.
Thank you for that question. I would just add to what he or she said that we are certainly interested in organizations and programs that are what we would call cross-strategy. And definitely I would reach out to any of the strategy leaders. We won't have you hop around and talk, or the impact area leaders rather. We won't have you keep talking to other people. This is our renewed commitment to, if you reach out to one of us, we will listen to you. We will point you in the right direction. You won't have to have multiple conversations. That doesn't mean we can promise funding, but we can at least alleviate some of the, navigation that folks have perhaps had to do in the past. But I would also say that conversation with whichever impact area leader you have is going to be very important, because while you may think that you are perfectly aligned with one or more of our impact areas, goals, and strategies, if we do not see it that way, I suggest that you listen to us and come in through open door grants, where our interest is in trying to get this money out in the best way and the most effective way possible. So we really are all on the same side here.
Okay, we have a question over here.
Thank you.
And then afterwards.
Hi, my name is George Kent. I'm with Special Olympics Massachusetts. And my question is, I'm fairly new to grant making or grant applications. Could you give me a sense of how you're organized here? I've heard things like impact team leader. I've heard about teams. I've heard program associates and that type of thing. So I'm a little bit confused.
Sure. I'll let Jen Aronson respond to that.
Thank you. I was told I should come over here. So yes, good question. It confuses us sometimes ourselves because there have been some iterations. So each of those 5 impact areas that I had described, each has a director. So you've heard from our arts and our health and wellness director and our housing and neighborhoods director, education and economic competitiveness and jobs also. They each have directors, as do both cross-cutting strategies. So Natanya Craig is the director of our grassroots work. And then I was formally, and hopefully again soon, the director of our nonprofit effectiveness work. So and each director, each of those 5 impact areas and 2 cross-cutting strategies has additional team members. In some cases, it's 1 associate or 1 assistant. In other cases, there are a couple of people. There might be a program officer as well. For the Open Door Grants program, that is falling under organizationally under our nonprofit effectiveness work. So I'm very involved in it. Stephanie Guidry is very involved in it. He, her, she, Basuego is also very involved in it, and they're technically in the nonprofit effectiveness team. Corey Davis is involved in everything, thank goodness, for all of us. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So it depends what you want. The question was, who do I reach out to first? And the answer is, it depends what you're asking. If you believe that you are aligned with one of the impact areas, reach out to the appropriate director of that impact area. And either that director or someone from that impact area team will get back to you. If you believe that you are not aligned, then reach out to, that we have an Open Door Grants email address. You can call me, you can call Stephanie, you can call he, her, she, Corey. We also have, is Laura here? And Alina? Laura Chandler and Alina are 2 associates with the grants management team. Oh, there's Laura. So we understand it's confusing. It's also, as he, her, she said, it's in progress. That we're piloting this. We're really interested in better connecting with you guys. So give us feedback and we'll continue to improve. Yeah.
Great. And I know there was a question here.
Thank you. This isn't working. Thank you. My name is Wendy Landman from Walk Boston. And as you're talking about the open door grants, I'm wondering whether there's a relationship with donor-directed funds as well. Is that something that you're opening doors to as well? Because obviously that's a very big component of what the Boston Foundation does.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jen may want to answer that question. That is really the question on everyone's mind, because it's like a measly $16 million through discretionary and then $110 million through donor-advised funds. We are stewards of that philanthropy. It's actually a completely different team that works with our donor-advised fund holders and advises them. There are times when our interests intersect, and donors will, we will learn together with donors. We will invest alongside donors. We will strategically sort of create complementary investments in the interest of moving an issue forward or trying to address a problem, but we do not solicit the donor-advised fund donors. That is anathema to our approach.
Okay. Oh, I think we have another question from social media.
We do. So it's, I have to move over. All right. So the question from social media is, can you talk about the criteria for evaluating applications?
Sure. Is that for the
for
5
open door
impact
grants.
areas? For open door grants, sure. So there are a number of criteria, obviously based on the application. Again, it will vary, I think, from quarter to quarter. Essentially, obviously, we're looking for strong ideas, need of community, strength of leadership and board, inclusiveness in terms of board and staff representation, cultural competency, obviously financial strength, except perhaps in the capacity building area where there might be a little more flexibility for that. Again, we're also thinking about portfolio diversity. So again, amongst a variety of dimensions, whether that's geographic area served, population served. I should also note within that we have a number of field of interest funds here that will enable the open door grants process to be especially supportive to organizations, ideas, work essentially that's supportive of seniors as well as individuals with physical disabilities. We also have part of our grassroots strategy coming in to support open door grants. So again, grassroots organizations, again, the startup organizations who are trying new and innovative things from the ground up. I think that covers it, but more detail is available online. Or Corey, do you have anything else to add? Okay, great. Next question right here.
Hi, I'm Julie Rizzo from the Boys and Girls Club of Dorchester. You just mentioned the field of interest funds. Could you just clarify what the difference is between that and the donor-advised funds?
Sure. So field of interest funds are essentially also funds that were given to us by donors. For the most part, they were left to us a long time ago, perhaps when we just started back in 1915. And over time, you know, we've just tried to keep in keeping with donor intent. So, for example, one large field of interest fund that we have here is the Frederica Home Fund, which is focused on supporting seniors. And so that was left to us a number of years ago, and we maintain those funds and continue to make grants off of the interest from those funds. The difference between that and donor-advised funds is that donor-advised funds typically have living donors who may want to, well, there's a spectrum really, but many do want to direct where those dollars go. So in the case of the field of interest funds, we're keeping in line with donor intent. In the case of the donor advised funds, we're still keeping in line with donor intent, but because the donors are living, the focus may change over time. So do we have another question here?
Hello, I'm Bonnie Day from Junior Achievement, and my question has to do with general operating support versus project support.
Sure.
And maybe you could speak a little bit to, since general operating support grants are hard to come by, it might be of interest to the room to find out more about that particular aspect of the initiative, Open Door Fund. Thank you.
About open door grants. Corey, did you want to speak to that, or? Okay. No? Okay. Well, it's essentially, or well, no, I was just trying to see. No, I was just trying to see if one of my colleagues might want to answer that question. But essentially, general operating support, project support, both are available through all of our discretionary grant-making open door grants, as well as our 5 impact areas and 2 cross-cutting strategies. I will say from the perspective of, or well, overall, obviously within our discretionary, or within our 5 impact area and 2 cross-cutting strategy work, the preference is to do general operating support grants, I think because we are doing deep partnerships with organizations often over a number of years, a multi-year grant. In the case of open door grants, both will be available. Again, I think it will depend on the nature of the work that you're submitting an application for. And so I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. Please.
So for general operating then, through the open door grant program, would you say that the monies or the funds, if granted, would go for general operating support for that initiative rather than for the entire organization?
I see what you're saying.
You know,
Okay,
that
yep.
kind of-
Thanks for clarifying. Oh, okay. General operating support essentially is for the work as a whole of an organization, whereas if there was this particular initiative within the organization that you're applying for funds for, you most likely would be applying for a project support grant, which then would be particular to that initiative. I don't know if Stephanie or Jen, did you want to expand on that?
Yeah, just briefly, I would just say if you have questions like that, please give us a call. Laura Chandler, who just ran in when I mentioned her name, and is a new hire who started last week, so that we can answer questions like that and talk things through. Our goal is to have you apply when you're ready, and through a story that makes most sense for you. So if it's an organization we haven't been able to support in the past, perhaps in the environment, or in a multi-service organization or something that's doing really important work, then, and those are just examples, these aren't promises, because it will be very competitive, but we would, it would make sense for you guys, because portfolio diversity is important to us, to come in and say, you haven't had the opportunity to support this type of work before, our organization is doing important work, and so we're coming in to ask you to just support the work we do every day that you haven't had a chance to support. If you are a very complex organization and it's difficult to understand your story, but you have a project that you feel right now is very timely and is very strong and could use some specific dollars, you would probably come in for a project support grant through Open Door. But again, we're happy to talk those specific cases through. And what? So Laura, well, any of us really can talk to you about this, but I mentioned her because she was, that position was created on the occasion of us launching open door grants, so that we would have more staff available to answer questions about how to navigate the application process.
Okay, we have a question over here.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Catrona, and I'm from Shooting Touch. It's a sport for development organization. And my organization works both domestically and internationally. How is Vision 2020 going to impact any of the international giving?
Yeah. Okay. I would say I don't think there really is an impact on what we're doing currently in terms of our international giving. I do think it may also, I also don't think it likely will be eligible for open door grants, again, given the focus in our catchment area. Yeah. Okay. So, sorry about that. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anyone. Are there any questions on this side of the room? Or if not, I'll keep going. All right. Okay, right here.
Hi, I'm Allison Cunningham from Summer Search, and my question is for the education team. I'm just curious if, given the launch of Coaching for Completion, if you anticipate there will be other opportunities within the education strategy this year or in the next couple of years.
Hi,
With Coaching for Completion, it's a federally funded grant, so we are limited to having an open competitive process. So we haven't ruled out that possibility, but if we do, it'll be another open and competitive process.
Okay. Any other questions? Social media? Okay.
We have another one from social media. They ask, would you consider statewide proposals for nonprofit effectiveness and grassroots strategies? So I'm not sure if maybe Natanya or Jen wants to field this question. Or I can field this question, which is, hi everyone. And I can hand it over to Natanya. So for nonprofit effectiveness, at least, we do see strengthening the sector as a whole as a priority for us. So certainly interested in ideas that they can be statewide, but they do need to have a significant impact in Greater Boston in order for them to be eligible. And Natanya, do you have anything to add?
I think I would add the same for grassroots, with the exception that for, at least in the grassroots strategy, resident-led is really important.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Or, yep, okay.
Hi, I'm Sandra Publikova from the USS Constitution Museum, and I have a question on the arts and culture. In the past, it's been presenting arts and more on the arts side, so under your review, are you leaning more toward culture, and sort of the big, strong, historic community that exists in Boston, or will we continue to now look to the open door as opposed to the arts and culture strategy?
So without having fully vetted the art strategy through our board and so forth, that's happening throughout the rest of this week, I can say to you that I think we've done a comprehensive scan of both arts and culture, and understanding the areas of highest need is what has driven the decisions for where we should focus going forward. Given the strength of the historic and collecting institutions in town, it's likely not going to be the area of focus. So I would recommend the open door.
Any other questions? Right here.
Good morning. I'm Bethany Blake with Harbor Light Community Partners. If you are currently a grantee in one of the initiatives that's now going to be moved to the Open Door Grants program, does that 2-year window start with the next application process, or does it? Are we sort of 1 year into that already? And the second part of my question is feeling hopeful that we actually are, the recipients of funding moving forward. On the 3rd year, should we be lucky enough to be in that place, can we look at other initiatives or program initiatives that would take us into one of the impact areas, or are we now sort of, we've been 2 years or we're getting greedy and we need to take a step back? So.
So thank you. To the first question, your new, it will start with the new application, yeah. So that what you've done to date does not count towards that 2 consecutive year and then 1 year off. I'm not sure that I understood the second question about then going into an impact area.
Well, for example, in our case, like many of the organizations here, we're sort of multifaceted. So if potentially a conversation with a program officer determines that we might fall under the initiative for housing, for example, and the systems reform changes, can we then move to that, or are we sort of relegated to that open door grants program now that we've sort of initiated our connection there?
That's a great question. We haven't discussed, at least I haven't been a part of conversations that have addressed that directly, but I would assume that yes, if you were both aligned with the impact area goals and strategies and determined by the staff to be an important partner to fund, that we would absolutely be able to fund you. We're trying not to set up processes and requirements that get in the way of us having impact. We're trying to do the opposite. So, yeah.
Great. Oh, okay. Another question from social media.
We're going to answer it. Okay. Are networks encouraged to apply? And I'm assuming that they mean for either type of our grant making, impact area or open door. So I can answer for open door. Yes, you are very much encouraged to apply. You just need to have one lead organization submit the application. So it's kind of as simple as that, and collaborations and networks are certainly encouraged. And then I don't know if I would assume that networks are always encouraged, collaboration is always encouraged, but don't know if there's a program director or anyone else who would care to speak to that specifically about their impact area. Yeah? No? Yes. Yes. Resounding yes. All right.
Great. We have about 5 more minutes for questions, so do we have any takers? Otherwise, or please.
Thank you. My name is Martha Farmer, and I am CEO of North Shore Interventures in Beverly.
Okay.
I think we're inside 128, so I guess we still fit into your category. I'm seeing it on. Okay. We work with startups that are in the medical field and in the clean energy, clean tech field. Our populations never fit into your categories before, but we're focused on innovation, and we also do a lot in the educational space. But it never seemed to fit your criteria. I guess you're telling me I should try the open door. But if we're not dealing with an underserved population, would we still be considered?
Yeah, I do think so. Again, it's hard to tell quarter by quarter what things will look like, but absolutely you would be eligible. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Okay. If not, we'll close, or, oh, please.
Yes, good morning. I'm Shonen Blake from Christian Resource Network. And my question is, do you have to have a full-blown proposal with a brand new idea as a grassroots operation?
Okay. I'll let Natanya Craig speak to that.
So yes, for Open Door, you don't have to have a new idea necessarily, but you do have to go through the same steps that you would if your idea was old. So yes, but we should connect after so I can better understand. Yeah.
No, but thanks for the question. Are there any others? Okay.
Hi, my name is Erin Anguich. I'm from the Betsy Tart Wilson Initiative for Children. That's BTWIC for short, because it needs it. So my question is, if one were to apply and then be rejected, can one reapply immediately, or is there a holding period?
There is a 12-month holding period, so you wouldn't be able to submit another application until 12 months afterwards. Okay. Any other questions? Right here.
My name is Tina Manuel. I'm from Hebrew Senior Life, and we are currently a recipient of one of your impact area grants, so thank you. Is there any eligibility issue, I didn't see it on your slide, about also applying for an open door grant if you're already a impact area recipient?
Did you want to answer?
So yes, then I'll stand up and move over. Yes, if you are already receiving funding through an impact area, then you would not be eligible to apply for open door grants.
Okay. There's 2 in the back.
Hi, Kristen Golden from the Full Frame Initiative. And my question is, because it's a new program and you're being very open about us talking to you before we apply, will you also be available to give feedback if you're turned down to help us figure out? what
Yeah.
you're looking for?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, that's one of the things that we're really committed to, especially within the Open Door grants process. We are creating some systems in which we'll provide feedback and are also, as a team, more than willing to have conversations after denial to talk through, the particulars of any grant-making decision. So, and one back there, I think. Okay.
Hi, my name is Heather Cunin. I'm with the International Institute of New England. Getting back to the question of eligibility, if you are receiving an award under the impact area, you would not be eligible for the Open Door. Is that also the case if you're a sub-awardee?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think we clearly haven't come across that yet. I think again we're learning as we launch and engage in this first round. I will say just generally as a foundation, we do take into account different types of funding you may be receiving from the foundation, and that is inclusive of our donor advised fund grants as well. But it really is a case-by-case basis, and I think Jen wants to add.
Yeah, I would just say that that is, while that is all true, you would still be eligible if you're a sub-grantee. You're still able to come in through Open Door. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we might have time for one more question if folks are interested. Okay. If not, we'll close this formal part of our Q&A, but obviously, you know where to find us. In this room, again, we have the red stickers at the bottom of our name tags. And beyond this event, you're more than welcome to reach out to us by phone, email, or obviously social media. So now I'd like to hand it off to my colleague, who we've already introduced, Stephanie Guidry.
I'm going to move this down. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for all of your questions. They were great, and we're very thankful for you all engaging in that with us. Just really briefly before we wrap up today, I'm Stephanie Guidry, and briefly before we wrap up today, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some ways that we can support you beyond the grant, because, as you know, through this process, we really do hope to be open to new ideas through Open Door grants. But realistically, as been mentioned, it's going to be competitive, and we will not be able to support every nonprofit or every amazing idea that comes our way. And so with that, in that vein, as a foundation, we endeavor to support nonprofits in ways that are sort of beyond that grant funding. I just wanted to give a couple of examples of what that looks like. Again, the scope and scale of our challenges are greater than we as a foundation are able to support. So a few examples of the ways we support nonprofits outside of that is through our civic leadership work that's been mentioned, through forums and research under the Understanding Boston platform. We provide information and insights to pressing issues in the community across Greater Boston. Also through our public policy work under that civic leadership banner here at the foundation, really seeking to affect change in partnership with other civic leaders and policymakers. But beyond that, we do endeavor as a foundation to also support you in ways that you tell us are really important to you. So one of those ways is workshops that have been designed on topics most relevant to your feedback. About operational issues you're facing. Some examples that we've had recently are, an outcomes measurement panel where we sought to connect nonprofits to other nonprofits that are really doing outcomes measurement really well and helping them think through ideas together. We also have, as been mentioned, the Giving Common, which is a free online resource that has about 1,000 nonprofit profiles right now, where nonprofits can share their stories in their own words with donors, funders, and the general general public. And then we also have a nonprofit e-newsletter that goes out, and it's essentially an aggregate of a wealth of opportunities, and whether those are funding opportunities or other resources that are out there in the field that we seek to make available to you. So I just wanted to point that out, that we are recognizing that while the funding may be limited, we are sort of working outside of that to meet your needs as a community. But we do realize that this forum or these information sessions are a great information gathering tool for us as a foundation. We've been having conversations with nonprofits and numerous surveys, and over the last few days have started on social media to engage some of your ideas about how we can support you beyond the grant. And so with that, we wanted to get your feedback. We're listening. And what we've heard so far in these many conversations is that in addition to all of the things that I just mentioned, the workshops, the newsletters, the forum, the research, that folks are really thirsting for opportunities to network both with other nonprofits so they can share best practices and collaborate, but also other funders. And so we hear this and we value your feedback, and we would like to continue this conversation with you. So we'd like to ask you, how can we support you beyond the grant dollar? We really do want to hear from you. On your chair when you came in, there's a little feedback form. Looks like this. We invite you to fill that out today, set it in the basket on your way out. We're going to look and see what kinds of trends we're hearing from nonprofits about what's useful to them beyond the grant dollar. And then also on social media, please feel free to engage with us there. You can use the hashtag Beyond the Grant. We really want to hear your ideas. We're listening. So with that, I will turn it back over to Jennifer Aronson, who will provide some closing remarks. And again, thank you.
Oh, wow, you guys, a lot of you stuck around. Thank you. So we are ending a bit early to allow folks to network. Staff will be sticking around. Again, we have the red dots on our name tags, so please come find us. And do continue to engage with us on social media, which is something else relatively new for us that we're trying. We just want to be better connected with all of you. I believe we have copies of our Vision 2020 plan on your way out. You can grab one of those. It's also available on our website. And mostly, I just want to thank you for coming, and we look forward to working with you going forward. So thanks.